Hello. My name is Christian Alstrup, and I run a boutique consultancy called GSD Work. I help venture-backed founders and chiefs of staff get stuff done. When you're a chief of staff at a VC-backed company, you have a few very important responsibilities, two of which are, one, making sure the entire team is super aligned towards an objective, usually an OKR. It's a very popular way to make sure that the team is focused on something on a quarterly basis. And then two, to make sure that information is constantly being shared throughout the organization. So make communication between individuals and teams free-flowing and easy, from the executives to people on the front lines, vice versa, across teams, right? Now, in 2023, many companies and especially startups are remote, at least partially remote, hybrid, and in some cases entirely remote native. And some companies actually have globally distributed teams from the start. You might have designers and engineers in sort of one country and or on different continents, and executive team might be remotely distributed as well. And that can be a big challenge to making sure that people are on the same page, right? So you might have folks in different time zones. It becomes difficult to have meetings at the same time, et cetera, et cetera. And so with these challenges in mind, there are a few things that you can do as a chief of staff to make sure that information is free flowing and people are focused on a common objective. And one of the things that I'm going to show you how to do today that you can do that's really exciting is you can actually use artificial intelligence. So we're going to use GPT-3, or I guess technically GPT 3.5, the latest release from OpenAI, to create automated meeting summaries and then have those summaries get posted to Slack. What's cool about this is it saves you a ton of time. I'm sure if you've taken minutes either during or typed up summaries after meetings, one of the problems with that is that, of course, if you're taking notes during the meeting, you can't be quite as attentive to the other members, so that makes it hard to facilitate or participate, which is really important. When you're a chief of staff, you got to pay very close attention to what's going on. And then two, it obviously, after the fact, it eats up into a lot of your time. Like, it's actually pretty cognitively taxing, even if you have an entire transcript, to go through and to, document actions and key takeaways and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to show you how to do is to set up a pipeline using a tool called Zapier. So that's a popular no-code tool that you might be familiar with, and use a bunch of different integrations into Zapier to basically take a transcript of a meeting and turn it into something that gets published in Slack. Now, in the example that we're going to go through today, we're going to use an automatically generated transcript from a Google Meet recording. So that's a great new feature that Google released that allows you to record meetings and generate transcripts that get turned into Google Docs automatically. We're going to take that, we're going to run it through a pipeline where OpenAI's API is a big part of the pipeline that does the generation of text and sort of the analysis of the raw transcript, and then turn that into a message that you can automatically post to a channel on Slack. For our example too, we're going to use a transcript of a weekly leadership team and executive sync meeting. One of the methodologies that I teach clients are OKRs, objectives and key results. You're probably familiar with that too. And that's something where I recommend syncing every week, right? So you get the executive team together for about 50 minutes. You look at how you're doing in the context of your goals. Did you get closer? Did you move further away? What did we learn last week and what can we do this week? Now, this is pretty basic. It takes about 50 minutes. And that discussion is like really rich. And so, what you could do in the past is you could type up some notes and maybe share them with the team. What I started recommending to clients a few months ago is to actually record the meeting, maybe generate a transcript and then publish it on Slack for everybody to see. But that, of course, puts a burden onto the user or to the other members of the team to read the transcript and analyze it. This is like a lot of work for them, right? And so we can now take that to the next level where you just hit record in the meeting and you get the transcript. And as soon as the transcript is created, it automatically creates a summary and then pops it into Slack. It's like, wow, okay, cool. So information sharing becomes really efficient, effective, easy, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to give you a preview of what this looks like. So this is a Slack channel that I have for my consultancy, and in terms of the channel that I'm posting to, I have one called OKRs. Okay, and what happens is a Zapier bot, Zapier. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. I always say Zapier, but that posts this message here. So the bot's called OKR Sync, weekly debrief. And this is all totally AI generated. So a human didn't type any of this. And it just took, the transcript of a meeting that I ran by myself, which is like a little goofy. I'm the only person on the executive team here. So, but I do take my own medicine and do OKR syncs with the methodology that I teach clients by myself. I actually go for a walk and talk and sort of like record it and think through the whole process, acting as facilitator and participant. Maybe I need AI to help me with that too. But okay, so, it basically posts a 3-paragraph summary of everything that was discussed. And these are all my actual OKRs. It posts insights. So what are interesting things that came up during the discussion? It posts some really interesting quotes, right? And then also gives context around the quotes. And then it also has a section where it's, how other members of the team or the company or anybody reading this internally can help, given, what was discussed at this weekly sync. So these are things that you can do to help take things to the next level in the week ahead before the next sync. And then some feedback, which is kind of cool. This is all, pretty legit, of how the meeting could have gone better, right? And then a link to a full transcript. Now, this is like totally AI generated. If you wanted to, you can swap out different components. You can change sort of the structure of this and how it works. But I'm going to go ahead and just show you how I built this soup to nuts. So, and you can follow along and basically do that for yourself as well. So first, let me show you basically how to create the transcript in the first place. So let's say, for example, I have this sample meeting. If, a lot of companies are using Google Apps for Business, so you'll automatically be using Google Meet. If you use Zoom, the same principles apply, but it's outside of the scope of this specific tutorial. So I recommend using Google Meet just for this, if you can follow along. Let's go to Chrome and we'll go here. So I'm in the meeting. Let's say, everybody else shows up. What you want to do is actually go to, manage recording. Again, that's down here in settings. You click manage recording. Tick this box. It says also start a transcript. Right? So you might be familiar with recording the meeting where you get a video recording, but you want to create a transcript as well. That's a new feature. So if you hit start recording, great. You'll get a confirmation that it's transcribing as well. And then when that's complete, a Google Doc will actually show up in your private Google Drive folder under, I think it's meet recordings or meeting recordings or something like that. It's like, cool. So then we can go stop recording, or you can just exit out after it's done. And, that's it, basically. It's pretty simple. So just make sure that you do that when you run the meeting. You actually record the meeting in the transcript. All right, we're going to close out of that. Now what we're going to do is, we're actually going to go to, just show you. We're going to go to Zapier.com. So Zapier is what we're going to use to actually create the automated summaries, like to set up the pipeline. So the way you do it, if you haven't signed up for Zapier, of course, you need to create an account. Go to Zaps. Go to my internal Zaps. So I've already created this Zap. If you want to basically like follow along and copy for yourself, you would hit create to create a new Zap. But I'm just going to walk you through how I set this up already. Okay. And I'm going to hit edit Zap. Let's see. Okay. and I'm going to walk you through the different steps. So this is actually pretty long Zap, but I'm just going to walk through each one of the steps all the way from new transcript created. So transcript enters your drive to send channel message in Slack. Okay. So the way you do this is make sure that you've integrated Google Docs, your account basically into Zapier, and then choose the event new document in folder. So if you just choose new document, it'll get triggered every time a new Google Doc gets created, but you only want it to be triggered when a new Google Doc enters this folder called Meet Recordings. So quickly, when you select this choose from folder, it'll give you everything in your root drive, but you actually want to select that Meet Recordings folder. Okay. So you continue, it'll come up with a few sample documents, and you can use this to test your pipeline as you go. I actually already went ahead and did this, and I chose this document, which shows up, and this is from this meeting I did yesterday, actually, where I did the solo OKR sync and recorded it. So GSD OKR sync, it's in the file raw plain text content. Great, that's the right one. Then hit continue. Next thing you want to do is to add a filter so that only the documents that basically have a title that matches the title of the meeting that you want to transcribe. I mean, it could be everything, but I would recommend filtering whatever you call your weekly leadership team meetings, etc. Choose filter by Zapier as the app in this step. Continue, and then enter in your filters. Right. So first thing you want to do is you select the title. Right. So that's passed from transcript. Like that's one of the fields, the data fields. And then you select text contains, and then put in like whatever the title of your meeting is. And then also make sure to put in -transcript. So this is an and filter. Now, the reason why is if you have a chat going as well, it'll also create like a TXT file of your chat. And that's a separate file that'll show up, but you actually just want the transcript. So that's a little important thing to do. Okay, if you hit continue, it'll say that it passed, would have continued. Great. Hit continue. Next thing you want to do is set up storage. So this is basically like a temporary database that Zapier provides. And so there's a little bit of like setup. You have to create this little ID and stuff to do it. But once you've selected that and set it up, you want to select an event, remove all values. Why you do that is we're going to be storing values in the database throughout the pipeline. And so you want to make sure it's all cleared out before you run future instantiations of this pipeline. All right, so you choose which account, hit continue. There are going to be no values. You can retest it, it's fine. So nothing's going to show up, but you're like, great, hit continue. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to calculate the word count. So why are we doing this? One of the problems, or one of the limiting factors with OpenAI's GPT-3 algorithm right now is it essentially it's called a token limit, but it's essentially like a word limit in terms of how much you can feed into the algorithm to get something out. And, transcripts can be very long, right? So if you have an hour-long meeting, people are speaking fast, there's lots of participation, that can be a few thousand words. I think as long as maybe like, 6,000 or 8,000 words. And the word limit, so to speak, of each call that you can make to the OpenAI API is like 2,500 to 3,000 words or 4,000 some tokens. In a future release, I'm sure they'll continue to open up that context window, but that will always be a limiting factor. If you want to analyze like really long documents and stuff, that's a problem. So I had to figure out like a workaround basically to chunk up the sections and process them separately and then bring them back together. So first thing you want to do, calculate word count. of the transcript, select formatter by Zapier. The event, you want to select text, hit continue. Make sure the input is the file raw plain text content. So there are a few different fields that get passed from your Google Doc. Make sure it's this one. File raw plain text content, great. And it's going to count the number of words in this string. We're going to hit retest. And it passes that 3,000. Interesting. 3,000 words on the dot. Kind of wild. Okay. So I'm going to hit continue. And what I'm going to do is turn the transcript into chunks. So this requires a little bit of Python coding. I'm going to walk through the actual Python code. If you want the actual code, like just copied and pasted, that you could put into this, connect with me on LinkedIn. You can do that by going to christianulstrup.com. That's christianulstrup.com. That'll redirect to my LinkedIn page. Just send me a network request with a little message saying that you want the Python code for this, and I'd be happy to send that over to you. Okay, so choose code by Zapier, select run Python, hit continue. Now you're going to want two pieces of input data. So one is the transcript. So that's the raw plain text of the document, and then also the words. And that would be the word count that we just generated previously. So those two get passed to two variables that'll then be analyzed in the Python code. I'm quickly going to walk through this. So first thing you want to do, you need to import these two libraries. If you're not familiar with Python, you can kind of like skip ahead, but very thankful I took that computer science 101 course in undergrad. I'm not a coder, but remember some of that. Okay, so then what you want to do is you want to actually strip out emojis. This was something that was like hugely painful. The rest of the pipeline was getting screwed up, and it turns out Google Meet transcript adds a wave emoji at the end of the transcript, and that was causing errors for some reason. So basically what I did is removed all the emojis. So that's a little function that does that. I found on Stack Overflow. Thanks whoever created that on Stack Overflow. And then what I do is I basically say, okay, we're going to set a variable called max words. Now with this is to account for that limiting factor I talked about before with the token limit. Now, as OpenAI increases the token limit for each call to their API, this will increase to probably 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, I don't know, however long. So at some point, you'll be able to send the entire transcript in one call, but right now you can't. Okay, so we have the max words. That gets turned into an integer. I'm sorry, input data. Yeah, that gets turned into the word count gets turned into an integer, and you have the number of chunks. So how many chunks should the transcript get turned into? So each one can be processed separately. That's what this does. And then you get a transcript where you remove those emojis. Then you look at the chunk length, and that's basically this function turns length of the transcript, divides it by the number of chunks. And then what you do is you generate a list of each one of those chunks. And I'm going to kind of skip over what this does, but this is kind of a nice, Pythonic, I guess, way of creating that list. So you can kind of do this all in one go. And then you get an output where it's a dictionary, but there's one key value store, which is chunks, and then this list of those chunks. And that's it. It is pretty simple. So I'm going to hit continue, retest the action. And again, if you want all this, just send me a message on LinkedIn and I will copy and paste it over. All right, cool. So it worked. So it creates this dictionary that has, that's interesting. Is it just one? No, two. Okay, two chunks. Yeah, that's right. So it creates two chunks of basically equal length. Right? We hit continue. Now what we're going to do is loop over each one of those chunks. And so it's like for each one of those chunks, I want it to perform the following actions, right? And and this is a great Zapier little app thing that you can use to do that. So select looping by Zapier, create loop from line items, okay? Continue. And then values to loop, you put in text, and then select the chunks text from the code output. So this is what's output by this code function. Make sure to trim white space, start with 500. I mean, obviously we're only doing 2 iterations, but just make sure you have that. Hit continue. And then test the loop iteration to make sure it's going through. All right, so it's working. That's cool. Hit continue. And then we're going to summarize each chunk with GPT-3. So for this, you need to make sure that you integrate OpenAI into Zapier. That actually necessitates that you have an OpenAI account. The way you can do that, go to beta.openai.com. You might have to put down some credit card information, but it's pretty inexpensive. Like, I think you end up spending a couple dollars like a month if you're having many meetings to be able to do this, but you do have to create an account and stuff. So just a heads up, you do need to do that. But once you've integrated it, choose the event, send prompt, hit continue. Okay, you've got your OpenAI account in there. Choose text DaVinci 003. This is a generative AI model. And then here's where things get fun and interesting, is like creating the prompts, right? So the way I do this, and this is like a very dynamic space at the moment. A lot of people, prompt engineers, I guess, is like a new role, but figuring out how to get the AI to do what you want it to do. What I like to do is just pass in this text, right? So this is, if you insert this, this is going to put in the value of that chunk, like the entire chunk of text, right? And then I say, the above text is part of a transcript of a weekly objective and key results sync meeting. These meetings are conducted weekly, and the purpose of the meeting is to keep the executive team aligned toward quarterly objective. Create a summary that includes what was learned over the past week and what will be done over the coming week to increase the odds of success. Okay, and that's it. And when that gets passed to the AI, it'll actually create it'll generate text. And, kind of as an aside, if you are going to start developing your own prompts, so you might want to write this a little bit differently. Just think of it like giving some direction to a first-year analyst. So somebody who's, a very eager to please first-year analyst, right? Who just got their bachelor's, and they are, they're not an expert really in anything, but they can do a pretty good job of, doing something like this. So give it context, frame the problem, tell it what you want. That's a good way to write a prompt, right? Okay. So temperature, I have it at 0.7. It's just like, you can skip over these a little bit. Maximum length is how many tokens, like basically how long the response is going to be. Just kind of skip over this stuff. All right. Continue. All right. And I'm going to test it and see what it comes up with. So it's going to pass this prompt through. Okay. This is embarrassing. All right. So I actually, I didn't make as much progress last week as I would have liked, in part because I was traveling internationally. But this is literally something I talked about during the meeting. Okay, so the summary, over the past week, it was learned that while travel was an excuse, the main reason Christian did not meet his objective was due to lack of motivation. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of true. It was a little bit tricky to stay focused, flying around all the time and so on and so forth. Anyway, I'm not going to excuse myself, but this is all real. Okay, so cool. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to Mine Insights. And then we're going to go to hit continue on this, OpenAI, the same thing. And for this module, what we're going to do is like create a bunch of insights. It's like a bulleted list, basically, of, what are some interesting things that came up during the meeting. So similar sort of deal in terms of the parameters, passing through the same text. And then I say, create a 5-bullet list. It should be it's interesting. It still works. Key insights, especially those that might be interesting or surprising. And these will be things that are shared with the whole company. Cool. Okay, continue. Excuse me. Okay. So these are insights from it. I think I said 3, but it outputted 5 for whatever reason. Okay. These are all cool insights that were generated. Boom. Continue. All right. I'm going to go kind of fast because we're about halfway through. So the next step is to generate feedback. Just rename this too. So I copied this over from another Zap that I created. Okay. Generate feedback for the meeting participants. Same thing. So this one's actually going to say, like, here are ways you could have run a better meeting, essentially. Okay. So you can read over this, but I ask for basically 3 direct and specific points of feedback. Okay. And this is all just based on the transcript. Take a second. Boom. Okay. I could have set it up better. That's funny. I should have focused more on action items. Input from other attendees. That one's always funny because it's obviously just me, but yeah. Anyway, this is like good. Yeah, it's good feedback. You might be surprised by the feedback that it gives. Like, it'll quote stuff from the transcript and say, hey, like, this could have been handled differently. It seems to work quite well. Anyway. Okay. Then what we're going to do is select interesting quotes. I'm going to skip through this again because it's essentially the same setup. All right. And then I'm going to ask for the 3 most interesting quotes, including context. All right. So you go through all this, hit continue. Okay. So, okay. Basically, yeah, these are all actual quotes from it. And anyway, the context is here. The quote is here. And that'll get put into the message. Cool. What I would love to do is to take this to the next level is somehow point to like a video clip of the actual quote, but we're not there yet. Soon. Anyway, you just get the text quotes. All right. And then the last thing is to ask for help from the company. So this one's pretty cool. It's like, okay, given all this context, what are things that people who are receiving the message who are not participants in the meeting, like what can they do to move things forward? So choose an account, blah, blah, blah. And then the prompt here is, given what was discussed, suggest 3 different ways other members of the company who are not at the meeting or are able to read the transcript might be able to help move the company forward towards its quarterly objective in the coming week. Okay, cool. Continue. Let's see what it does. Wow. I mean, it created yeah. These are all really good. Some of them are kind of general. And that's part of, if you want to make the prompts better, this is something I've found is like, continue to iterate quickly and test. And if something's like too general, too specific, or doesn't quite fit, just update the prompt and keep testing until you get like it feels about right. But we're just going to hit continue. Okay. Now, remember, we're chunking up the entire transcript, so it's being processed each one of those chunks, and there are 2 in this case, are being sent through this whole loop, right? And what you need to do is once you've created those analyses, they need to come back together and be like summarized and synthesized into a whole message. You could post everything, I guess, if it's sort of short like this, like there are only 2 chunks. But if you have a really long meeting, like let's say a 5-hour workshop, which is something that I do with pretty much all my clients, that can generate tens of thousands of words, right? Which is like, I think a novel is like 80,000 words, but you could easily generate 40,000 words, like half a novel basically in one of these workshop meetings. We speak about 3 times as fast as the fastest person can type. Little interesting tidbit there. So you're just generating a ton of data that needs to be analyzed. Okay, so the way this gets put back together is we're gonna in this data storage that we set up at the beginning, we're gonna put these different summaries, chunks, analyses, like store them so that they can then be agglomerated back together at the end. And we use this with storage by Zapier. Choose the event push value onto list, hit continue, select the same storage that you chose at the beginning when you cleared it. Excuse me, we're going to do that. For this one, because it's summaries, create a key that represents, whatever the list is. Select the value. So the value in this case would be the output from the summarized chunk. And then location end of list if not already in list. Hit continue, retest the action. So it's basically appending each one of these outputs from the loop to a single list, like a little database or Excel spreadsheet or something. Okay, cool. So it's working. Hit continue. I'm kind of going to skip over this a little bit, but you remember we did summaries, mining insights, generate feedback, select interesting quotes, and asking for help. So 5 different things that were generated with GPT-3 or 3.5. And so we have 5 different lists that are going to get created. So insights, continue, using the key insights in this case, and remember to push the right output to it. Okay, I'm actually just going to continue, or I'll retest each one of these, but okay, continue. And then now we're going to add the list to feedback, storage, push value. Same thing. Again, feedback is just a key. This is arbitrary. Make sure, again, the right thing is coming through. Be right. Action 9, feedback output. Continue. Retest. Make sure it's working. Cool. Continue. Add to the list of quotes. So, same thing, except in this case, it's a list of quotes. Continue. It's all the same setup. And as you're building this out, by the way, you can just hit ... and then duplicate the step and then change one of the parameters. That's kind of the easiest way to do this. You hit continue. Okay, add to list of recommendations. Same thing. Account, blah, 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 recommendations. Okay. Test. But, okay. Now what you're going to do, okay, so you have now these lists of all of that output from the transcript as an input. You want to now exit the loop. So you're done looping over those chunks. Select filter, hit continue. Continue if loop iteration is last, and that's true. That basically, like the looping function tells you, yes, it's done, hit continue. Then what you want to do is get basically all those lists that you stored, and they kind of like enter into memory. So continue, key, item format. Yeah, so this is just like a GET request basically from the storage. Just quickly going through that. Okay, so what are you going to do is put the key from whatever key you arbitrarily set in this step into here. And then the item format, if you look at the instructions, it's use this as a placeholder. So %S, and then each line will be a new line. And basically what this does is it creates this big text chunk where it's just each one of the values stored in that list in one giant text, a giant string, basically. Hit continue. Okay, cool. Retest the action. Item separator, new line. And it just outputs this. Again, this is like everything in the list, but has a big string. Hit continue. I'm going to go over this quickly. Same instructions. You can see it here. Pause if you need to. Hit continue. Same thing. Test it. It works. Great. Continue. Get feedback. Okay. Continue. Feedback. Retest the action. Okay. That's working. Quotes. So again, these are all 5 different things that we mined from the original transcript. And what we're doing is after those are mined, we're taking those separate chunks, the AI generated analysis, and bringing them together into agglomerated chunks. And why are we doing this? Well, we're doing it because if you were to simply publish all this, it would be still just way too much text to go into the Slack message. So we're going to actually narrow this down even further. So, okay, cool. So you have all this data, right? Now we're going to compress all of those things down into like basically summaries of summaries. So we're going to have AI synthesize those big things into something that's even more concise and compact that were mined from the different chunks. Okay, so select OpenAI, send prompt, continue, same model, text eventually 3. And now we're going to select for each one of these the output from the GET requests. And we're going to say, okay, given that big string of, in this case, they're a list of summaries of the different chunks, say the above text is a series of summaries, just like I said, create a 3-paragraph summary of these summaries. Cool. So I'll do that. Hit continue. Boom. So it does that. It's a lot of the same information, just more concise. Hit continue. Share top insights. Hit continue. All right. And this is going to take that really long list of insights. So again, those are enumerated insights generated from each chunk. I'm going to say select the 3 most interesting and valuable. Now, how GPT-3 interprets interesting and valuable, I don't know. I don't think the interestingness or like sort of the saliency problem has been quite figured out yet when it comes to machine learning research. But there are probably ways to improve this prompt. I'm probably going to do that actually after I finish this recording. But anyway, at the very least, you give it this direction. Now, you could provide more context about why you would find something interesting, injecting some additional information around like what your particular goals are or something like that. This is a good starting prompt. Hit continue. Retest the action. Excuse me. And it'll select, so it goes from these lists of 5 to just 3. Okay. It's a little bit more digestible in a summary. Give feedback on how to run the meeting better. Continue. Okay. And then from that list, I say select the top 3 bits of feedback. Otherwise, it's going to be, tons and tons. It's too much to wade through. Right. And this is, again, like what to bring it back to the benefit of using something like this, you as a chief of staff, it's very time consuming to do this all completely by hand. You read parts of transcripts, you're taking lots of notes, you're trying to compile things into, takeaways and memos and all that kind of stuff. And it just takes a lot of time. And what's cool about using AI is is it going to be at the same quality that you could do if you focused for an hour or a couple hours on doing this? Probably not. Will it get there eventually? Maybe. But at the very least, it's this takes, basically zero time and provides something that's, probably 80% as good, maybe 50%. And that's a great way to at least start, right? It's better than nothing. Okay. So, and it instantly shares all that information with the rest of the team. So I've found, just as an aside, it's the transcript usually gets created about 10 minutes or so after the meeting ends. And then the summary, it'll take maybe a minute or so to generate it. So that means that after the meeting ends in about 10 to 15 minutes, you'll have this entire sophisticated summary published for the entire company to see, along with links to the transcript if they want to go in. Incredibly powerful. I don't think unless you have somebody taking notes live, right? And that's pretty expensive because an hour of, even an entry-level person's time is, 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks, whatever that is, for an analyst. That's way more expensive than just running this for a few cents. Anyway, incredibly powerful way to close the loop really fast and share information. Okay. List the top quotes, et cetera, et cetera. Select 3 top quotes from that big list. Continue, retest. Cool. Okay, so these are good quotes. Continue. Synthesize recommendations, but contribute to the company's progress. So for this is okay, this is taking that list of recommendations and boiling it down to 3 for people reading the summary. Retest it. So it's taking, these 8. In production, it would be 16 because it's 8 of these times 2 chunks. So from the 16, it gives these 3. I don't love actually this output. It's maybe it's too general. So could go back and change the prompt. Just going to hit continue. Okay. Now we have everything. We're ready to publish this to Slack. Right? So what you want to do is integrate your Slack account, select Slack if you're using Slack. If you're using Microsoft Teams or something else, you'd have to set up that integration, but I know a lot of companies use Slack, so that's what I'm doing. Hit continue, send channel message was the event. Choose the Slack, and then I have this channel OKRs, and I showed you this at the very beginning. I'm actually going to delete these just to show you. It'll take 2 seconds to create these. Okay. So, the way that I've structured this, of course, you can do it however you want, is I start with the summary of summaries, the list of insights, quotes, and this is just a way to format the message in Slack so it'll show up as bold. How you can help, how the meeting could have gone better. Actually, that'll make it italicized for the full transcript here. And so that's a link to the whole transcript if somebody wants to dive in. And this is really great. Just again, as an aside, if you do have the transcript published for everybody in the company to see, if there's something that catches their attention in the summary and they're like, oh, I want to dig into that, find it where it was discussed, they can go into the transcript and then start tagging executives or whoever in the transcript and start an asynchronous conversation. So very powerful way to get information flowing more effectively in your organization. So little tip for chiefs of staff. Okay, send it as a bot. Yes. bot name. This is just what I named it. The bot icon. I think this is not rendering correctly for me for some reason, but you can make the icon whatever you want. Include a link to the Zap. I have that as yes, so if something breaks, you can troubleshoot. Okay, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. These are all like the default fields. I'm just going to hit continue. And then what I'm going to do is retest the action. I'll show you in real time. Boom! It posted it to my OKR channels in Slack. And here we have the entire summary. We have the insights that were generated, the quotes, how the rest of the team or anybody who's reading this can help, how the meeting could have gone better. This is maybe a little bit too long, so I can change the prompt or something like that. But now you have that all set up. So basically what that means is if you want to go back and change any of the prompts to improve the quality or change the information that's included in the summary, you can go do that and it'll just work. All right, so I'm going to hit publish. Italicized, include my version. What did I do? Italicized transcript, link, publish it. And what's really cool is now every single time I record this meeting that I have every week at the same time, it's got the same title, it's recurring. When I hit record and create transcript, like I showed you at the beginning, literally like 10 minutes later, this entire pipeline will just pop out the summary to this channel. Okay, so that's kind of the whole summary. If I hope this was useful, I hope it was valuable. Definitely, if you're interested in getting some help with this, definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. So if you go to christianalstrip.com, that'll redirect to my LinkedIn page. I help VC-backed founders and chiefs of staff, especially, get stuff done at work. And so, I publish a lot of content to LinkedIn. Like, definitely reach out. I'd be happy to share that Python code or provide other tips if you want to go ahead and try this, what I just shared. And if you're interested in some of the services that I offer, so AI enhanced management techniques for remote teams is definitely one of them. I also do stuff, help chiefs of staff and venture-backed founders get their teams hyper-focused with OKRs, so objectives and key results, really powerful framework for getting everybody kind of marching forward on the same page. Attention management techniques, so how do you really stay focused as an individual and on a team in the digital age? And then also customer discovery, so doing a lot of market discovery, customer development, interviews. So essentially, again, if you want to get stuff done, send me a message, connect with me on LinkedIn. I would be happy to chat with you live as well if you want to consult on something that's, something that's top of mind for you. Could be integrating AI with Slack or, doing any of these kind of things. So just connect with me and shoot me a message. Again, that's christianalstrip.com. And thanks for watching this whole thing. If you made it this far, I really hope that you're able to start using GPT-3 to take your communication management and team alignment responsibilities to the next level. This is a great way to make yourself even more valuable to your principal and your company. Best of luck and have a great 2023.